Hey everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade. I'm a personal trainer and mindset coach specializing in HA and ED recovery. And today I'm joined by my fabulous friend who is a fellow holistic health coach who specializes in HA recovery. She's known as the Wellness Antidote on Instagram, or Nikki. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's fun to be
Um,
back.
Yeah, I feel a little bit nostalgic because the first time you actually come on the podcast, we discussed your unicorn recovery of falling pregnant with
Mm,
Romy before your period arrived. Um,
yeah,
and Romy's now 2 and
yeah.
Casima's 4, and you're 22 weeks pregnant again, and I'm
Mhm.
32 weeks pregnant. And
It's so wild.
we're living in completely different worlds, scenarios, and it blows my mind.
I know. It's crazy how it's like full circle. And we've caught up so many times in between and build a friendship and it's just the girls know each other really well now and stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I actually remember it was because you were heavily pregnant. It was like I could pop any minute. And we were
Yeah.
having all those kinds of chats. And now we're having chats on what's this pregnancy like and what's birth going to be like. And yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's always a fun time with you. But that kind of leads us to our point of conversation today, which is how's your pregnancy this time around been compared to your pregnancy with Romy?
Um, Different, way different, and I know they all are, but like way slower. But crazy at the same time running after a toddler. Just like I feel it in my body so much more this time at 22 weeks. I feel like I'm almost gonna pop. I'm sore and like slower and yeah, I definitely feel it in my body a lot more this time. And I don't know if it's because I am running after a toddler all the time or just because second pregnancy is getting older, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a struggle sometimes. By the end of the day, I'm like, I need to sit down and put my feet up desperately.
Mm.
What about you?
Yeah, slow is definitely a good way to put it. I think with Casima, even though if you had have asked me at the time, was I past my HAED tendencies, I would have been like, yes, absolutely yes, because it was the best I'd ever been. But
Yeah.
in particular, I think about first trimester, and I was still getting up to go for a 4 and 5K walk at 6 in the morning, even though I felt so sick. And I was
Yeah.
still trying to get to the gym like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, even when I just did not have it in me.
Mm.
Whereas this time round, first trimester, I had like 8 or 10 weeks off. I'm going to say movement full stop because I wasn't even going for leisurely walks because I was so exhausted. I felt so sick. Um, and there wasn't that lingering, like, just do something,
Mm.
which was there with Casima. Like, it's only a walk, you'll be fine.
Mm.
Where this time round it was, and it could have actually been to do with the fact that I have a toddler to chase after. um, because if I had have gone for the walk or if I had have gone for that gym session, it just knocked my socks off. And then I had
Mm.
zero capacity to be mum or coach or anything. Um,
Yeah.
so I found that this time round, it wasn't a conversation of like, just do something. It was, you've actually got family priorities and
Mm.
what's going to put you in a position to keep them a priority and be happy with the standards you're keeping them at. Um,
Yeah.
and that's definitely evolved as time's gone on. So obviously I don't have the nausea or anything anymore. I aim to train maybe 3 times a week, and that very much goes by how I'm feeling. But my type
Mm.
of training is so different than what it was with Casima. Casima, I could still push really hard, which
Hmm.
could have been because my physical capacity prior to her had still been quite a push.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
where like I've got videos of like gosh 35 weeks pregnant, I'm doing 70 and 80 kilo back squats, and I remember doing
Whoa.
them and feeling great, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of doing a back squat at the moment, I'm like, please don't. Like
No,
every part of
I
my
know.
being is like, I just I don't want to. And if someone actually
Yeah.
said no, come on, you can do it, I would, all that pops into my head is like, putting a blanket over your head and being like, I'm not here.
Mm.
Like, I
Yeah.
swear I'm not here. So that's
Yeah.
probably been the biggest changes for me is physically and mentally, my thought process are just unparalleled.
Mm. I knew you'd relate. It's like the further and further you get past recovery and your priorities continue to shift. Like movement's still amazing and we love it and whatever, but it's just like, yeah, you realize like I'll have to choose between being a good mum right now today or using all my like exerting myself on one workout kind of thing. That's how
Mm,
I feel at the moment. Like I'm going to the gym because I just like jump at the chance to go when my partner's home because he's military. So it's like if he's working normal hours and he's like, you've got time to go to the gym today. I'm like, yay, because it's like my time.
mm,
But at the moment, I'm like, he's been like, if you don't want to go, just go and do like a meditation or just take 50 minutes out. Like that's how
mm,
long usually. Um, and yeah, it's really nice to be able to be like, okay, or I'll go to the gym and just do something that feels good. Like, got a bit of a plan, but I'm like, sometimes I get on a machine, I'm like, I actually can't do this, or this feels like crap. I'll just stop. Like, it's
mm.
really good. And it's, yeah, I reckon I would be different to the first time with Romy too, because I think it was right after recovery for both of us when our physical fitness is probably different to now.
Mm.
But it's just another lesson, isn't it? It's like, I don't know, recovery always just makes me so grateful in different ways. The more I like go past it, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I can actually do this and not feel guilty and not feel super restless or beat myself up because I cannot do what I expect or whatever, you know?
Yeah, well, even in the somewhat reduced capacity, because you could argue that even though training's reduced, that daily activity is still high, whether it be just
Mm,
daily errands, cleaning the house, looking after a little one and whatnot. But I think the other thing that really complemented that, and just linking it back to our recovery, kind of uh, pops its head up and says, "Yeah, you can thank me once again," is even
yeah,
in their eating behaviors. Because
yeah,
I first trimester, super sick and nauseous. I am not proud of my diet at all. Like it's dry
yeah,
crackers. I don't ever really buy chips, like crinkle cut chips. But when I'm pregnant, first trimester, I was the same with Cosima. I just wanted like salty crinkle cut chips.
yeah. They hit the
And
spot.
toast. Like I was
Yeah.
just on nutritional cardboard for for like
Mm,
14 weeks. And even though part of me is sitting there going, you have not had a vegetable in a long time, like you haven't had some salad or fruit. The other
mm,
part of me is very comfortable with the fact that, and this could be very comforting for anyone listening in the first trimester, that it's very much survival when you feel so sick. And if
yeah.
the only thing you can get in is crackers or some chips, then make the most of it because you're better off
Mm,
getting that in than getting absolutely nothing.
yeah.
Um,
100%.
and in the past, there would have been one, you don't eat crackers, you don't eat chips, and you don't eat bread, like full stop. So
Mm,
there was nothing to eat. And second of all, the lack of movement would have made me jump into fasting territory. Like
mm,
you don't deserve to eat because you're not exerting anything. So,
mhm.
let's make it quote unquote balanced. So that's how I would have perceived it at the time. So I
I
feel
know.
that those lessons continue to evolve because obviously for me, it's like, same as only four, so like 5 years worth of practice
Mm,
later, right? Because
yeah.
women might listen to the podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so far from that. But my HA recovery was nearly 5 years ago now. Like
Yeah.
that's such a
And
long
you,
time. You're a
it
new
evolves.
person. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, I agree. And I think it's so important to talk about that because, like, a lot of women I see still just like, I remember when I was in all of these HA recovery groups and stuff, it was like the big focus on getting pregnant. And if I don't, I'll just go down the medical route. Nothing against it. I was also looking at it, but it's like the quick fix. Like, I just want to recover to get pregnant. But it's so important to talk about the fact that when you are pregnant, those lessons that you learn in recovery are just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they're just you need to be able to have gone through that and learned that it's okay to listen to your body and your cravings and your hunger and what you actually feel like and work through that guilt and the need to compensate or yeah, like by over exercising or under, whatever it is you're feeling at that time. But it's like I think that's so important to talk about because in pregnancy you really have to give yourself grace and carry through what you learned in recovery, right? Through
Mm.
pregnancy. Like it almost is like another step because your body's just like it needs to prioritize building the baby, obviously. So yeah, when you said that, I thought back to, yeah, my first trimester was exactly the same. And it's
Yeah.
like you have in your head, oh, I'm gonna eat all these vegetables and for the baby and stuff. And then I was like, oh, what am I feeding this child? And my midwife assured me, she's like, don't worry, the baby's actually getting all of the nutrients and all of your stores. So it's really just you that's
Yeah, that's getting the
feeling.
cardboard.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is the more nutritious stuff always comes back, no matter how
Mm,
long your nausea lasts. And even if it happens to last your whole pregnancy, which would be so awful, and I hope no one experiences that. Um, but we always go back to behaviors that feel more comfortable, or that we're more like, okay, I'm satiating myself in the nutrients that I want to be hitting. But I think another
mm,
thing that sort of pops up on that experience as well is, uh, I know I went into both pregnancies going, I'm going to have like the fittest pregnancy ever. Right. I want to be one of those
mm.
shredded moms.
Yeah.
And as I said, with Casima, I actually trained a lot more than what I was doing now. And interestingly enough, my bodies were very different both pregnancies. Like I actually think I carried more weight. Well, I did carry more weight because I weighed myself through my pregnancies than what I am with this pregnancy. And through no intention at all. So, like, I can
Mm.
easily say to you, I was eating to satisfy myself, but I was training 5, 6 days a week. I think when I went on mat leave, I was training even twice a day with Casima because I was bored and I had nothing
Wow.
to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I felt really good. Like nothing was to exhaustion, and I was sleeping like all the time, so I felt like my body could actually do it.
Mm.
Um, but I definitely carried more weight with that pregnancy, whereas this time round, everything's slower. So based
Yeah.
on those disordered thoughts, let's say,
Yeah.
really the pregnancies and the body should be reversed. Where this time
Yeah.
around, everything's slower, everything's softer, training's 50%. And I feel like my weight has actually been completely different to when I was still trying to push all the time.
Wow. Probably
Um,
stress, hey? Your body was like
I've
stressed.
actually got no
Yeah, I don't know.
idea. Well, because I
Mm,
also think, and that was actually to my point that I totally skipped, is that I really truly believe your body chooses in pregnancy. Like it's
mm,
very much up to us to just go, whatever you need, I will give you,
mm,
and honor what that looks like, whether it
mm.
be training, not training, more weight gain, less weight gain.
Yeah.
Because that pops up sometimes too. I have women messaging going, I'm not meeting the kilogram percentages every time I see my midwife or whatever else.
Yeah.
And like in Australia, I don't know about you, Nikki, but I don't get weighed ever. And I didn't with
Mm,
Casima. They don't use that as a marker of
mm,
pregnancy health. They very much go by conversations of how you're feeling rather than physical weight. But
yeah.
overseas, they can make
Yeah.
mums feel like weight gain is relative to baby health.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And
I think they've
there's some
stopped it over
holes
here a
in
bit.
that. Yeah.
I remember it happened like once or twice in my first pregnancy, and I just said like I don't want to know. But I think it was to do that horrible glucose test. I think they needed to know roughly,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I don't know, but like I don't think there's been any need for it otherwise, which I really like because yeah, you can't choose how your weight's going to distribute or anything, can you?
Mm.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like yeah, my body's responded so differently. And I think it's very easy to go into pregnancy with this intention of, I'm going to look a particular way throughout the pregnancy or by the time baby's
Hmm.
out. And
Mm,
I think it's quite harsh and quite
mm,
critical
it
because
is definitely.
I really believe that even if you're nourishing really well, if your body wants excess fat stores for breast milk production to grow the
Mm,
baby to ensure your health, it's going to do it regardless of
hmm.
what you're eating within reason. Of course, if you're going to town on food and eating way more than you need to, then that's a different. I'm talking about just eating relative to what suits your body and complements
Mm.
your
You and I had
body.
that experience as well with that breastfeeding. Hey, like I remember you said when you stopped breastfeeding, your body naturally let go of some weight. So did mine.
Yeah, yeah.
Only stopped breastfeeding like 6 months before I got pregnant again. But I remember just, yeah, it obviously, like I know for my body needs more body fat when I'm breastfeeding because I
Mhm.
noticed that nothing changed besides I stopped breastfeeding. I don't believe it was 5 kilos or 6 kilos of milk or something, but I just, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Like, but that was cool to be at the point where, like, I don't weigh myself often, probably a couple of times a year. I don't know even why I do it. I just like, I kind of like to check in. Like I find it triggering still, and I would never do it like consistently, but I just find it interesting, like how I respond to the number on the scales. Like, and I've never gotten rid of the scales at all because I sort of feel like if I did jump on and hit a meltdown, then I'm like, well, you need to work on some stuff.
Mm,
But I remember that happening, like my body shifting before this pregnancy when I stopped breastfeeding and just being like, oh well, like that's just what it needs or whatever, and it not being like, oh cool, maybe I should just push a little more, or like,
mm,
or like I used to, I would have thought seeing the number go down is a good thing, and it would just like motivate me or like trigger
mm.
me to push more. But now I'm just like, no, like it's just what your body's doing. I knew full well I wanted to get pregnant again and everything. So it's cool to be in a different mindset, um, and not let weight completely dictate what you're going to do next. Hey.
Yeah, especially when like the breastfeeding is a great point because I don't know about you, but I remember hearing breastfeeding is a great way to regulate your weight after pregnancy because it uses so much energy, da 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 da. And that definitely wasn't my motivation for breastfeeding, but I do remember thinking, oh, that's a cool little perk. And
Mm,
that was not my body's method of breastfeeding, as you mentioned, like held weight that did not budge. And of
mm,
course, just went with it because breastfeeding was my top priority. But yeah, I similar to you, it was 4, 5, even 6 kilos within a couple of weeks of stopping, and
mm.
no changes to
Yeah.
diet, no changes to exercise, nothing. And I weigh myself fairly regularly while pregnant and postpartum because I'm just fascinated by the changes, and I
Mm,
almost use it like a with Casima. It was more of a boot camp because I'm reaching numbers that I thought would feel like death, right? Because I
mhm,
never had seen myself so big. But instead, I'm like, see, you feel great. See,
mm,
it's just a number. You're really happy with yourself today, and
mm,
you're enjoying yourself. So I used it as a tool to get past things. And now
mhm,
I'm just fascinated. Like I just want to see the
mm.
numbers because I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
no
It's good to be in that.
it's not like a judgment attached. It's never a oh good or bad. It's just a oh okay, look at that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So personally, I like it, and I like afterwards as well, watching the swelling and just the fluid and
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah,
amazing, hey. It is
yeah,
actually pretty wild what our bodies can go through, especially like going from recovered to pregnancy to breastfeeding to normal to pregnant again. I'm like, wow,
yeah.
it actually gives you a new appreciation altogether, hey, for weight in your body and everything. Like it's pretty
Well, I feel like it just
amazing.
like breaks the shackles of any belief you ever have.
Yeah,
Because I
it
know
does.
one
Because
thing I was observing as I was watching my pregnancy, like with Casima in my belly, with Casima out, and my weight was dropping, but I looked pregnant for gosh, 4 to 8 weeks after Casima. Like you would have thought I was still 20 weeks pregnant. But yet I'm
mm,
watching, so my belly's full, and yet I'm watching my weight drop. And I'd just be like, this is
mm,
so weird
yeah,
because
yeah,
physically I look pregnant, and yet my body is just doing all this crazy stuff. And it, it was nothing I ever would have believed if someone had told me, if that makes sense. If they'd
yeah.
have gone, oh my
You have
gosh,
to
I still look
experience.
pregnant, but I'm just dropping weight. I'd be like, yeah, right. Because I was so
Yeah,
suspicious of things when
yeah.
then I got into more of this curious mindset, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Like everything I
Mm,
believed about weight and weight distribution, pregnancy
hmm.
just like throws on its head
Doesn't it?
completely and utterly. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm excited again this time around to like, oh, what is it going to look like, and what is going to happen? Um,
Mm.
even on the breastfeeding front, are you planning to breastfeed again?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I loved it. I don't think I'll go as long. I don't know. Like
Yeah,
we were like almost 18 months, I think, 17 and a half. I don't know. I'll see. I'll sort of
yeah,
see how I feel. I think I was done, I think. And she was pretty much like I sort of led the way, but she was pretty much done too. And um it's helped our sleep. Honestly.
mm,
So yeah, I'm just gonna see what happens. I'm definitely planning to though. I really loved it. It was
yeah,
cool. What about you? Yeah?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Same as you though, just take it one day at a time. There's no
Mm,
expectation of however many months, or I'll just see how we go. Because I think I was 13 months when I stopped breastfeeding, And I still
Mm.
had to be the one that pursued it, but she
Yeah.
seemed quite ready for the change as well. There was no
Yeah.
uh, protesting, you
Neither
know,
with mommy. That's why
taking
I'm
the
like, I'll
feeding
wait to
away. It
see.
was, yeah, like
Yeah.
it would just swapped into just a cuddle to sleep instead of nursing and cuddle to sleep. She
Mm.
actually took it quite well. Um,
Yeah.
but even that was quite an interesting and beautiful situation because at some point I just thought, oh, I don't think I want to do it anymore. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just sort of come almost like my desire to fall pregnant just sort of like hit me one day. I was like,
Yeah.
because I can't have kids, whatever, no big deal. And then all of a sudden one day I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I want a baby. Um,
Mm.
breastfeeding almost felt the same. I just sort of woke up one day and went, oh, I think it's a good time.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
done.
yeah, but I'm interested to see what happens with this baby though, because Cosima was born in lockdowns. Like the very
Mm.
beginning, we got locked down in March. She was born in January. So that whole breastfeeding experience was really easy because we were always at home. And she never took a
Mm.
bottle. So everything was like me.
Yeah.
Where this time around, if baby's willing to take a bottle, I would like to do the whole express. And so if someone wants to
Yeah.
give me a hand with feeding, they can.
Yeah, me too,
Um,
definitely. I was the same. You kind of, it makes you stuck. Like I've never been without, I've still not ever had a night without her or never not put her to sleep. But it's like I would like to be able to have like a little bit more freedom in terms of like Connor can do the bottle and put the baby to sleep or whatever.
mm,
That's a huge goal. And I think we'd have to, like, we can't be just stuck with him because we've got to get another kid and a life
yeah,
that revolves around the other child. I think it'll be very different this time, which I'm excited for to experience it, knowing what I know now.
yeah. Um, if last question, if
Mhm.
there, what was one thing perhaps that happened with your first pregnancy that you didn't expect, or perhaps no one warned you about, or that might have shocked you?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I'm quite grateful for my experience in my first pregnancy. It was nice up until I was overdue and I had to get the C-section and stuff. It was a really good pregnancy. I feel really grateful for it. I think this
Or
one's
even
been
like
harder.
newborn experience? Was there anything that, oh yeah,
Oh,
you can apply to,
breastfeeding.
yeah,
No
what?
breastfeeding. I won't go. Like it was so hard, and I think that's the one thing that did put me off. Like I wanted to go for a VBAC this time is because I had such a hard time breastfeeding Romy. Like um, my milk wasn't coming in. I got mastitis and all sorts
Mm,
of things. I think we spoke about this on the
yeah.
previous podcast, but how much work it was to actually get my body to breastfeed. I was shocked. So now I know what I need to do, even if that means like pump round the clock to get it in and everything after
Mm,
if I do have another C-section. But it was yeah, that was shocking to me. I was like, I thought you just chucked the baby on and it was fine, but I had to use nipple shields and like,
mm,
yeah, at one point I was pumping and then feeding 24 hours around the clock for like, I did that for about 4 to 6 weeks, like hardly slept just to try and get everything going because my body was just not wanting to produce
mm.
it. So that was really hard, but it's also I'm so confident now. Like I'm like
Well,
I
because you've
know,
done it, yeah, you know how to
yeah.
manage it.
Um, that was probably with the newborn stage, but the pregnancy has been more this time. Like I'm really sore. I think what I said
Mm,
to you, just under my C-section scar is just like this, like really sore, swollen pain. I've got some pregnancy belts, so I'm going to start wearing them to just lift it. But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like at 22 weeks, I feel like I really need to be taking lots of rest and slowing down and stuff. And it's quite an out of body experience. I wasn't ready for this soon, especially
Mm,
it gives me a lot of guilt because I'm like, I just want to run around the park with Romy, but sometimes I'm like sitting there watching her and I'm like, oh, it's
mm.
caught me off guard. I didn't think it was going to be like this. Like my body's responded a lot differently, but mm, what do you do? You got to just, I just got to do what I got to do and rest as much as possible. And which is, like I said at the start, like a good lesson from recovery and not feeling guilty. It's more the mum guilt's getting me this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, if you go on the Rock Tape website, there's actually a way you can tape your belly with rock
Really?
tape. Yeah, it
Like to
almost
lift
looks like,
it?
yeah, it almost looks like a noughts
I
and
need that.
crosses, but it just I've never tried it, but I saw it the other day and I'm
Mm,
like, oh, that's interesting because the belt can be quite tight in order for it to lift. Where the
Mm.
tape, because it's a bit like stretchy, I think it can kind of like lift
Ah,
your belly, but without the full compression.
okay, I might look into
Yeah,
that
so
because
it's
that's what I feel
parallel.
like I need something just to like pull it
Yeah,
up
it's like parallel
off
stripes,
my.
almost like nipple line apart, and then
Mm.
another two horizontal, like kind of top and bottom of baby almost. Yeah,
Ah, like wow, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Because I think that's another thing with second pregnancy is like I'm so much bigger this time than I was. My belly's way bigger. Like I look
further
5 to
along.
10 weeks
Yeah,
ahead than I am like with Romy. But yeah, so I'm like, oh my gosh, you have so much more growing to do. What are you gonna be like? Like
yeah,
in terms of pain. So yeah, that's all right.
yeah. I've noticed that too because baby's breech at the moment, and it's making my
Mm.
belly extra pointy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm facing you, it looks
Cute.
like my belly's gonna like poke you.
Yeah.
It's like it's really
So
pointy.
cute.
Um, so oh my gosh, it's so because like if you think about baby in that like breech position, and then when it
Mm.
kicks and stuff, it's sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, my belly cannot stretch anymore. Like
Wait, so breach is up. So she's
so bum down,
he,
baby's
she,
bum
they,
down,
them
and
down. Yeah.
almost like imagine if you're stretching, touching your toes, but
Yeah.
upright.
Oh,
So head is like under my rib cage, and when it
yeah.
kicks and punches and stuff, it's like it's scratching under my rib cage.
Yeah.
So
Can
when
you
you
see the
sit,
little move? Like, can you see
because
little
it's
arms?
the back is so harsh to the surface of my belly, when it
Yeah.
wiggles its elbows around, the elbows like
Oh,
point out. Like it's
oh, it's
crazy.
kind of
Yeah,
creepy.
it's so
Hey, it's
good. It
cute.
is. If I put
It's
my hand on it, I'm
cute.
like, there's only like a thin bit of skin between us. Like, because
I
I can
know.
feel elbows and like the back, it's wild.
It is
Um,
really, yeah.
I love baby movements. I don't know if anyone's watching the YouTube or listening to this, but baby like rolling around in your stomach is like the
It's so cool.
coolest,
Yeah.
weirdest, alien,
Yeah. Relieving as
beautiful.
well. Like, it's just
Like,
so nice to feel them all the time. But um, it is really like, and then you get the phantom kicks after you had baby. Did you get them?
no.
Like you still feel, it's
Did
a
you
thing
get
apparently.
them?
Yeah, I felt I could still feel like movements when I had Romy. Like for ages, I just feel these,
Oh,
they call them
wow.
phantom kicks. It's really weird. Like it's like, I don't know, your body like
So
thinks
you got the conditioning of having the
of
sensation. So
feeling
your
them.
body
Yeah.
makes it.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
really
I've
weird.
never heard of that. It
Um,
makes sense it would happen.
yeah, maybe pay attention. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I knew about it or something, but it happened last time. And
Wow.
yeah, it's so weird, but I love it. Cool.
That's so interesting. I'm going to look that up now. I know if you have a C-section, you can go into like phantom labor. I don't know if they call it phantom
Oh,
labor
wow.
actually, but my mum was telling me one of her friends years ago had a cesarean. And then like 24 hours later, she started getting contractions, even though baby was out. Um,
Wow.
I don't know if that's a super rare thing, if it was a miscommunication, like I don't know, because my mum had kids 30 years ago and it was her friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know, mum. Like I've never heard of she's like, Jen, I promise
It's
you it
kind of weird.
happened.
Anything, I
um,
believe anything getting pregnant, like it's just, yeah, it's weird. Hey, what happens to you?
yeah, yeah. And so unique to the individual as well. Like for the most
Mm,
part, we think it's a everything's quite common amongst, but I feel like every mum you speak to has had differences in all kinds of shapes and forms, and even just
yeah.
between two pregnancies, like we've discussed today.
Mm, yeah, definitely. It's crazy how like different symptoms and stuff like that. But it's interesting. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. Gives you
Yeah,
a whole new appreciation for the woman, that like the female body again.
yeah, absolutely incredible every time. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today about pregnancy
Okay.
one and pregnancy two. We will stay in touch and perhaps do another episode on some other topics around pregnancy. And if anyone listening has enjoyed the conversation or perhaps has some questions for Nikki and I, please do send Nikki or myself a DM or an email because we can perhaps talk about that in another podcast. But I'll leave your details in the show notes below in case anyone wants to reach out. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Lovely to talk to you as always.
All right, thanks everyone for listening. And if you can like or subscribe to the podcast or YouTube, that would be amazing. And we will see you in the next one.